in psychosis. Now laugh with me.
Hey, this is Mad Soup.
You should try some!
I'm AD.
And I'm Maz. This is from Oxford Treatment Center, the average cost of marijuana by state.
Marijuana is a relatively commonly used substance in the United States. According to federal government estimates, 22.2 million Americans have used it in the past month, and many start using it in their adolescent years. Furthermore, many states have legalized the use of the substance at some level over the past few years. Some, such as New Mexico and New York, have legalized only for medical use, while others, such as California and Vermont, have enacted laws permitting recreational use by state citizens. Because the use of this substance is so widespread, we decided to take a closer look at how the cost of marijuana varies across U.S. states. Our results show a notable difference among states based on legalization status. First, we looked at the average price of high-quality marijuana, 1 ounce. Interestingly, the District of Columbia is the most expensive by a significant margin. The three with the highest average price are District of Columbia, $597.88 per ounce. North Dakota comes in second at $383.60 per 1 ounce. And Virginia in third at $364.89 per 1 ounce. These are places where marijuana use is somewhat restricted. In DC, it is legal to purchase. In North Dakota, it's only legal for medical use. And in Virginia, it's not legal at any level. That's the price, even though it's not legal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Huh. Well, that's fucked. So next we looked at the average cost for medium quality marijuana, 1 ounce. The district is still the most expensive place, but the next two states are not the same as the order for high quality marijuana. District of Columbia, $550.66 per 1 ounce. South Dakota, $335.26 per 1 ounce, and Minnesota, $330.52 per 1 ounce. The places with the cheapest prices are Mississippi, coming in at $170.22 per 1 ounce, Oregon, $187.09 per 1 ounce, and Washington, $196.82 per 1 ounce, with the national average for medium quality marijuana being $265.58 per 1 ounce. Beyond being an addictive substance that causes inebriation, legal for use or not, the use of cannabis has been linked with negative mental health outcomes, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Cannabis use has been connected with the development of schizophrenia and other psychosis. Higher likelihood to have thoughts of suicide, higher risk of social anxiety disorder, and other negative effects.
I mean, I think it's widely known that weed is psychologically addictive as anything can be, but not physically addictive. As a daily user for 20 years, I can attest to that. I would also note that a more culturally accepted drug, alcohol, has stronger and more adverse effects in your life compared to marijuana. I've anecdotally witnessed THC to treat withdrawal and addiction to other substances, much like many people say that they get from another natural drug, kratom. The fact that weed has very limited side effects makes it a grave danger to the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, because of marijuana's many medicinal uses. Never underestimate someone protecting their profits. They would probably pay for research, any research, that would negatively impact the optics or progress of a rival superior product. Also, it is a bummer it's so expensive in some places. You would get 2 joints in the mail every morning on Uncle Sam if it was up to me.
Also, let's just throw out there the fact that weed has been very commonly used as a very positive thing for cancer treatments.
This is from NPR. Trouble for ecstasy. What MDMA's FDA setback could mean for psychedelics.
The psychedelic drug MDMA is near the end of a decades-long effort to enter mainstream medicine. But instead of celebrating, supporters now find themselves wondering if the treatment will actually make it to the market anytime soon. Last week, advisors to the Food and Drug Administration pored over shortcomings and missteps in the research and overwhelmingly rejected the evidence supporting MDMA as an effective treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. It was a harsh public reckoning over the drug's future and a deflating moment for those involved in psychedelic research. It really doesn't feel like the data was given its proper due, says Ingmar Gorman, a psychologist and investigator in the MDMA clinical trials that came under intense scrutiny last week. The hope was always, if we do the science and we do the science right, the data will speak for itself. The advisory committee's rejection of the drug also raised fears about the future of other psychedelics, currently being studied for their therapeutic potential, rattling the market and generating a flood of bad press. Investors and scientists have doubled down on the sector in recent years and funneled billions into drugs like psilocybin, ketamine, and LSD. Despite the negative showing, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that the agency still approves the treatment against the recommendation of its advisory committee. In fact, Dr. Rayo thinks there's a low probability of an outright rejection. Instead, the agency could come back with a very strict set of safeguards and requirements to do further research once it's on the market, or the drug maker could be asked to do another clinical trial before FDA approval. The panel overlooked key points about the research supporting MDMA-assisted therapy and seemed swayed by still-to-be-proven allegations of ethical misconduct that FDA staff said weren't supposed to factor into the recommendations. In the long run, some researchers maintain this is actually a much-needed level set for the field, tamping down the hype and forcing a dialogue about the riskier sides of this treatment. After the treatment, and that bias among those running the trials had skewed the results. A recent report questioning the validity of the data amplified those concerns, as did the public hearing in which some accused the study sponsor of being a therapy cult. The panel fixated on functional unblinding, the fact many trial participants could tell whether they had received the studied drug instead of the placebo. Another strike against the applicants was criticism of the specific form of talk therapy that goes hand in hand with the drug. Advisors were troubled by what some of them saw as an experimental approach. The fact that about 40% of those in the trials had tried MDMA before enrolling in the study only fueled speculation about whether the findings could be trusted. Certain oversights in the trials were even harder to ignore. Researchers didn't collect data on participants' experiences on the drug, such as euphoria, information that FDA staff needed to weigh the abuse potential, or lab work related to the drug's safety profile.
Well, it is in my view that all drugs should be legal, taxed, and regulated for public consumption. Free all non-violent drug offenders, expunge their criminal records, and compensate them generously for wrongful imprisonment. With all drugs legal, that would cripple the black market selling impure products. The opioid crisis would be very different if people could purchase heroin, see the strength of the drug on the label, and be assured they aren't putting any unwanted benzodope or fentanyl into their body.
Like fresh needles, you're going to be getting like you said, like a pure form of the drug, not something cut with something else. This is from CNN. A newly discovered Amazon fish species is named after the Lord of the Rings villain for its odd pattern.
Thousands of fish species, about 2,500 of them named, call the Amazon River home. But scientists estimate nearly half of the marine creatures lurking in the massive stretch of water remain undiscovered. While studying piranhas and pacus in an effort to better assess vital fish biodiversity, an international team of researchers has found and identified a new species of pacu, a piranha relative with a plant-based diet and human-like teeth. Besides its odd pearly whites, the newfound species has striking orange and black markings, including a bold vertical black bar stretching across its flank. The researchers say resembles the fiery eye symbol for the villain Sauron from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings books and film series. The marks inspired the fish's name, Mylopolis Sauron, according to a study published Monday. The eye-catching fish is not the only animal named for Tolkien's Dark Lord. A genus of butterflies was found in May 2023 with spots that look like eyes on its wings, reminding researchers of the well-known symbol from the trilogy. There is also a species of tree frog, a dung beetle, and a genus of dinosaurs named after the character. Because piranhas and pacus are closely related and have similar features, differentiating the species can be difficult, the authors noted in the study. Both pacu and piranha species can change appearance throughout various stages in their lives, and males and females often look different from one another, also making the various species hard to tell apart. Pacus are important to their ecosystem, largely due to their role in spreading seeds through their diet of mostly fruit, which make them vital for the growth of rainforest trees and other plants. The fish tend to spread seeds far from their parent plants, helping to expand the forest and limit disease that easily spreads through crowded trees. By discovering and identifying the species that live in certain ecosystems, researchers will be able to lead conservation efforts to protect animals that are endangered or at risk.
This is from Indy 100. Mutated tribe can swim to the bottom of the ocean after developing xenomad gene.
The Bahu tribe of Indonesia have become the first known humans to genetically adapt to diving. The tribe live in an extremely amphibious life and now have been proven to possess the genetic makeup to do so. Living off the coast of Indonesia for more than 1,000 years, the Bahu people live in houseboats, spending a high quantity of their lives in the sea. As expected, they're highly skilled when it comes to freediving and fishing with spears, as well as possessing extraordinary lung capacities and strong swimming capabilities. Members of the tribe can dive up to 230 feet using just a set of weights and a pair of wooden goggles. Speaking to the BBC, Melissa Lardo from Cambridge University said they dive repeatedly for 8 hours a day, spending about 60% of their time underwater. But it turns out that it's not just their skills that help them achieve this, but also a unique genetic mutation known as the xenomad gene that also aids in their diving ability. They have extra large spleens. I'll give you an extra large spleen. The spleen kicks in when a body is submerged in water, highlighting its key role in the human dive response. The spleen I'm sorry. The spleen contracts to inject oxygenated red blood cells into the circulation, which can up the oxygen in a human's blood by 9%. There's not a lot of information out there about human spleens in terms of physiology and genetics, but we know that deep diving seals, like the Weddell seal, have disproportionately large spleens. We believe that in the Bahu, they have an adaptation that increases thyroid hormone levels and therefore increases their spleen size. It's difficult to know exactly how long the Bahu people remain underwater, but some claim to have been under the sea for as long as 13 minutes. Sadly, their lifestyles are currently under threat. Their nomadic ways mean they can struggle to gain citizenship, plus commercial fishing has devastated their food supply. This is from Newsweek. Drivers told to stay clear of gas stations in 4 states.
Motorists have been warned not to fill their cars with gas at locations across Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Indiana due to spiking atmospheric pollution. The National Weather Service has issued air quality alerts and advisories across the 4 states for Monday due to high levels of ozone in the air. This is due to elevated levels of ozone, which may approach or exceed unhealthy standards, according to the NWS, promoting the agency to warn drivers to avoid filling up their vehicles at gas stations. Ozone pollution, also known as ground-level ozone, is a harmful air pollution formed when pollutants from vehicles, industrial facilities, and other sources react with sunlight. Unlike the protective ozone layer in the upper atmosphere, ground-level ozone is detrimental to health and the environment. The ozone can reach dangerously high levels on particularly hot and sunny days, and the Midwest is currently in the grip of a heat wave. Help reduce ozone by taking the following actions. Carpool. If possible, bike, walk, or take the bus instead of driving alone. Refuel your vehicle after 8 p.m. Do not idle your vehicle. Exhaust contributes to air pollution. Mow your lawn in the evening hours and avoid the use of gas-powered lawn equipment, the NWS alerts advise. Ground-level ozone is harmful to health because it irritates the respiratory system, reduces lung function, and aggravates conditions like asthma and bronchitis. It can cause coughing, throat irritation, chest pain, and shortness of breath. Long-term exposure can lead to more serious respiratory diseases, reduced lung function growth in children, and increase the risk of respiratory infections. Vulnerable groups such as children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing health conditions are particularly at risk.
This is from Live Science. Or Live Science.
Live.
This is from Live Science.
I think
it's Live Science. This is from Live Science. The sun's magnetic field is about to flip. Here's what to expect.
The sun is on the verge of a significant event, a magnetic field reversal. This phenomenon happens roughly every 11 years and marks an important stage in the solar cycle. The shift in polarity indicates the halfway point of solar maximum, the height of solar activity, and the beginning of the shift toward solar minimum. The last time the sun's magnetic field flipped was towards the end of 2013, But what causes this switch in polarity, and is it dangerous? Let's take a deep look at the sun's magnetic field reversal and investigate the effects it could have on Earth. And to understand the magnetic field reversal, first it's important to be familiar with the solar cycle. This approximately 11-year cycle of solar activity is driven by the sun's magnetic field, is indicated by the frequency and intensity of sunspots visible on the surface. The height of solar activity during a given solar cycle is known as solar maximum, and current estimates predict it will occur between late 2024 and early 2026. But there's another very important, albeit lesser known, cycle that encapsulates two 11-year solar cycles known as the Hale cycle. This magnetic cycle lasts approximately 22 years, through which the sun's magnetic field reverses and then reverts to its original state. During solar minimum, the sun's magnetic field is close to a dipole, with one north pole and one south pole, similar to Earth's magnetic field. But as we shift towards solar maximum, the sun's magnetic field becomes more complex, without a clear north to south pole separation. The upcoming switch in polarity will be from the northern to the southern magnetic field in the northern hemisphere, and vice versa in the southern hemisphere. The reversal is driven by sunspots, magnetically complex regions of the sun's surface that can spawn significant solar events such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs. Large blasts of plasma and magnetic field. As sunspots emerge close to the equator, they will have an orientation matching the old magnetic field, while sunspots forming close to the poles will have magnetic field matching the incoming magnetic orientation. This is called Hale's law, but the exact underlying cause of such a flip in polarity remains mysterious. That gets into the whole solar cycle and wondering what that is. Solar physicist Phil Schreier previously told Space.com, "We still don't have a really self-consistent mathematical description of what's happening. And until you can model it, you don't really understand it. It's hard to really understand it. What we do know is the solar magnetic field flip is not instantaneous. It's a gradual transition from a dipole to a complex magnetic field to a reverse dipole over the entire 11-year solar cycle. In short, there's no specific moment in which the sun's poles flip. The magnetic field flip is so gradual you won't even notice when it happens. And no, however dramatic it might sound, it is not the sign of impending apocalypse. The world will not end tomorrow. There's no doubt that the sun has been incredibly active recently, firing out numerous powerful solar flares and CMEs, triggering strong geomagnetic storms on Earth, which in turn have produced some incredible auroral displays as of late. Space weather is typically the strongest during solar maximum, when the sun's magnetic field is almost the most complex. One side effect of the magnetic field shift is slight but primarily beneficial. It can help shield Earth from galactic cosmic rays, high-energy subatomic particles that travel at near-light speed and can damage spacecraft and harm orbiting astronauts who are outside Earth's protective atmosphere. This is from the BBC. Native Americans see omen in Yellowstone's rare white bison calf.
Incredibly rare white bison calf has been photographed in Yellowstone National Park, exciting Native American tribes who view it as a religious sign heralding major change. It was spotted in the Lamar Valley area and is the first white bison to be born and the last wild herd in the U.S., according to modern records. Montana photographer Aaron Bratton took photos of the young buffalo in the Lamar Valley on June 4th while visiting the park with 3 of her 8 children. Stuck in traffic caused by a slow-moving herd, she noticed a young calf cross the river nearly 100 meters away and initially mistook it for a coyote because of its sandy-like color. The birth of a white buffalo is a sacred event for many native tribes on the Great Plains, including the Lakota people, who believe that it relates to a time around 2,000 years ago when food was scarce and the bison were rarely seen. The Lakota legend tells of a beautiful woman who appeared and delivered the gifts of a sacred pipe and bundle to the people. The woman told them that she would return to restore harmony in a troubled world, and then rolled on the ground 4 times, changing color each time before becoming a white buffalo calf. Her departure led the bison to return, and white buffaloes are now seen as a sign that prayers are being heard and that change is coming. The white buffalo woman is considered the central prophet in the theology of many tribes, including the Sioux, Cherokee, Comanche, and Navajo. Simon Moya Smith, a Lakota writer who is also raised on the White Buffalo Woman's story, told the BBC that tradition says the arrival of a white calf is seen as both a blessing and a warning. Every time a white calf is seen, you have this prophecy of something good or something bad will happen, but we know it's going to be great. Great in the sense that it's going to be significant. Lakota elders will attend the event, and other tribes may send delegates. Chief Arvo Looking Horse, who is the 19th generation keeper of the pipe, believed to have been given by the White Buffalo Woman, said that the calf's arrival was a sign we must do more. All nations should come together at their sacred places and unify with us in prayer. He said. He called the calf's arrival a blessing and a warning. I'm overwhelmed. It's a miracle, the spiritual leader told BBC News on Thursday. He noted that the calf seen in Yellowstone had black eyes, a black nose, and black hooves, as the prophecy predicted. The National Bison Association estimates that only 1 or 2 white bison are born each year.
This is from Popular Science. Every human semen sample contained microplastics in a new study. Scientists detected styrofoam, PVC, and other toxic chemicals.
As if last month's news that microplastics are easily detectable in human testicles wasn't bad enough, a new study now further confirms an unfortunately logical conclusion to the uncomfortable truth. Polymer particles are increasingly being found in semen, and while previous research documented the pollutants in some samples, the latest results are especially disconcerting. According to a new report in the Journal of Science of the Total Environment, a medical team collaborating across multiple universities in China recently discovered various types of microplastics within every semen sample collected from a total of 40 males selected from a general population pool. As the Guardian noted on June 10th, a total of 8 different plastics were found in the samples. The most prevalent were polyestyrene, is most commonly used for packaging like styrofoam and CD jewel cases, plastic bags, followed by PVC. This is not great news. Mounting evidence indicates these now practically unambiguous microplastics are detrimental to human health and appear to be tied to biological issues, hormone irregularities, and potentially reduced sperm counts. Apart from human testicles and their contents, the pollution has been detected in people's lungs, blood, placenta, and even breast milk. As an emerging body of research increasingly implicates microplastic exposure as a potential factor impacting human health, understanding the extent of human contamination in relations to reproductive outcomes is imperative. Unfortunately, the news isn't exactly shocking, since it's difficult to find a place on the planet that doesn't include traces of microplastics now. From the deepest depths of the ocean to Mount Everest, the toxic debris is basically everywhere at this point. Often undetectable to the naked eye, microplastics can enter a human body through the food they eat, water they drink, and even simply the air they breathe. More investigation is needed, but early evidence the particles can cause tissue inflammation, as well as elevated risks of stroke and heart attack. And then there's potentially specific effects on males. Globally, about 15% of couples experience infertility, among which male factor infertility accounts for 50% of the cases, the researchers wrote, adding that the male infertility continues to increase in tandem with the ongoing deterioration of semen quality. But even as more males display lower sperm counts and similar issues, impaired sperm remains unidentified in about 40% of men. And thanks to studies such as these, it's becoming increasingly likely that microplastics may have something to do with this. This is from New Republic. Southern Baptists vote on IVF as terrifying sign of what's to come. The anti-IVF movement is not a fringe idea on the right anymore.
The Southern Baptist Convention voted Wednesday to oppose in vitro fertilization, signaling a dangerous shift in conservative stances on the procedure. The move by the country's largest and most powerful Protestant denomination, passed by 11,000 messengers at its annual convention, declared that IVF most often participates in the destruction of embryonic human life, and calls on the denomination to only utilize reproductive technologies, taking into account the unconditional value and right to life of every human being. The resolution also included a clause decrying the creation of surplus embryos and their destruction in the course of treatment. Instead, it called for the adoption of frozen embryos in order to rescue those who are eventually to be destroyed. The vote is an indication of how accepted it has become on the right to pursue restrictions and outright bans on IVF. Millions of Americans who have trouble conceiving children rely on the procedure each year. including many conservatives, and polls show it to be supported by most Americans overall. But most evangelicals and anti-abortion activists, if not all, believe that life begins at conception, and IVF often results in fertilized eggs being discarded. In February, the Alabama Supreme Court issued a shocking decision that ruled frozen embryos were people under state law, effectively making IVF procedures equal to murder in the state. It seems the issue of IVF may soon join the polarized issue of abortion rights, with Democrats and Republicans taking side and fighting it out over elections and in the courts. This is from The Guardian. Hillary Clinton endorses challenger for Jamal Bowman's New York House seat. Former Secretary of State voices support for AIPAC-backed George Latimer in congressional race.
Hillary Clinton endorsed the primary challenger in Representative Jamal Bowman's vulnerable re-election race in New York. The former Secretary of State and Democratic presidential candidate gave her support to George Latimer, the Westchester County executive who has received a significant amount of support from the pro-Israel lobby group AIPAC. With Trump on the ballot, we need strong, principled Democrats in Congress more than ever, Clinton wrote on X on Wednesday. In Congress, Latimer will protect abortion rights, stand up to the NRA, and fight for President Biden's agenda, just like he's always done. In a statement, Latimer said it was a deep honor to receive Clinton's support. Her voice gives even more momentum to our grassroots campaign, which keeps gaining strength because we stand strongly and honestly for our values and for our belief in delivering meaningful results to the communities we serve, he said.
That's a load of shit.
Hours after Clinton's announcement, Senator Bernie Sanders said in a post to X that he would be speaking at a rally for Bowman, hosted by the New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AIPAC-funded right-wing billionaires support extremist Republican candidates. They spend $100 million against progressive this year, including $25 million against Bowman, said Sanders, referring to the pro-Israel lobby. The upcoming race between Bowman and Latimer has grown increasingly contentious as the candidates' divided stances on Israel's deadly war in Gaza has become the focus. Bowman has remained critical of Israel, like other progressive House representatives. Meanwhile, Latimer has received significant support from the United Democracy Project, a super PAC affiliated with AIPAC. The super PAC has already spent millions on campaign funding to unseat Bowman. Latimer holds a 17-point lead over Bowman, according to a survey by Emerson College Polling.
She ran a horrible campaign.
Hillary Clinton, you might say she's the worst, one of the worst. She ran a horrible campaign in 2016, lost to a reality TV host, and blamed everyone but herself along the way. She conspired with the DNC to beat Bernie in 2016 in the Democratic primaries. She's a war criminal. Latimer was literally a Republican, and of course Hillary's going to endorse him. I mean, she agrees with him. It's like our system rewards the most narcissistic, corrupt, greedy sorts while shitting on anyone that dissents towards something better than the status quo.
How deep the rabbit hole does go as far as AIPAC and Israel bought media. And
Everyone's got an AIPAC guy.
do you think that the reason she's backing him over the other one is because the other one doesn't have an AIPAC guy? Doesn't support AIPAC?
Yeah.
So she's literally just going with the AIPAC person, not necessarily with the...
That's what her AIPAC person's telling her to do.
I wonder what kind of dirt they have on us for us to lick their boots so much. Because America doesn't lick anybody's boots, so what do they know?
I'll put a boot in your ass.
And what else? It's so cute. You're from Oklahoma. I'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Democrats are controlled opposition.
It doesn't really matter what party you stand for when the same person's pulling the strings, right?
No, it's a rotating puppet.
It's more like a false sense of democracy. We're free and have democracy and have a voice and have a choice, but actually, we don't.
Some call it a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie.
Even when Hillary Clinton was running and it was all the hype for the first female president, I was like, yeah, but does it have to be her?
Right. Well, she has a public position, a private position.
You mean she has...
She's two-faced.
But she's a...
That's why no one voted for her.
That's sad. Because you would
think... You can't even beat the orange man? What she did to Libya is unforgivable.
This is from Newsweek. One weekend in America. Shootings leave 10 dead and 73 injured.
That's been a headline more than a few times. Like 2022, 2021, 2020 it's sad.
January, February,
Yeah.
March, April. Second week in April.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
At least 14 mass shootings over the third weekend of June left 10 people dead and at least 73 injured across various U.S. cities, according to the Gun Violence Archive, a website that tracks gun violence incidents nationwide. While there is no universally accepted definition of a mass shooting, the Gun Violence Archive defines it as an incident where at least 4 victims were shot, either injured or killed, excluding the shooter. Using this definition, mass shootings took place over Father's Day weekend in Michigan, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Ohio, and several other cities between Friday and Sunday.
So you can't shoot 3 people and then kill yourself. You're not a mass shooter. You have to shoot 4 people and then kill yourself.
The incident that caught significant attention occurred at a splash pad in Rochester Hills, Michigan on Saturday. A 42-year-old man with no prior criminal record drove to a city park around 5 p.m. and opened fire on people, including children, playing in the fountains and water sprays, according to the police. 9 people were injured, including an 8-year-old boy who was shot in the head, his 4-year-old brother who was shot in the leg, and their mother who was wounded in the abdomen and leg. The presumed gunman died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and police are still searching for a motive in what appeared to be a random attack. The splash pad shooting was just one of 3 in Michigan, with the other 2 happening in Detroit. On Saturday night, around 11:30 p.m., 5 people were shot on the city's east side, including 1 man in his 20s and 4 girls ranging from 14 to 20 years old.
So the thing that kind of caught my attention about the splash pad was that there was a mom and a dad getting ice cream with their 4 and 6-year-old, and they were getting ice cream, and the gunman opened fire, and the mom and dad kept the 2 girls from getting hit, but they were shot 7 times between both of them. They're alive, but that's what caught my attention on the splash pad.
That'd be a trip.
Right? Just going to get ice cream with the girls and hear somebody open fire.
Earlier that morning, 6 people were injured after being shot in Lathrop Village, a suburban city of Detroit, while attending a party. Parties were again the locations of most of the shootings this weekend, with 7 people injured in gathering in Massachusetts and 16 people shot at a Juneteenth celebration in Round Rock, Texas. 2 people were killed in that incident, and the suspect remains on the loose. Chicago was the scene of a mass shooting on Friday when a man opened fire while driving his car, injuring 4 people. About 2 hours east of Chicago, 4 people were injured in a shooting at a gas station in South Bend, Indiana. In Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a shooting left 3 people injured and 1 person dead. In Alabama, a shooting at a gas station on Saturday resulted in 3 injuries and 1 fatality. Philadelphia saw a mass shooting on Friday, resulting in 4 injuries and 1 death. On the same day in Princeton, West Virginia, a shooting left 5 people injured. In Ohio, 2 shootings occurred over the weekend, one in Cincinnati and the other in Columbus, leaving 5 and 4 victims respectively, with 2 fatalities in Columbus. These shootings, occurring in a single weekend at the start of the summer when gun violence typically increases, are part of the more than 200 mass shootings that take place in the United States every year. Whoa. I asked how to join the Black Panthers, and it says, a warrior must defeat the current Black Panther and fight 6 of Wakanda's greatest warriors at the same time.
Oh, dang, they're thinking like the movie Black Panther. Like people are not.
Is it weed time yet? This is from Channel 5 Boston. A 21-year-old man threatened to kill his 15-year-old girlfriend days before the fatal shooting, the court says.
A Massachusetts man was held without bail, accused of fatally shooting a 15-year-old girl with whom he was in a relationship with. Was detained in Lowell District Court on multiple charges, including murder in connection with the death of Elena Dickey. Middlesex County District Attorney Marion Ryan said Dickey's family members first feared she went missing when she did not show up for her 8th grade graduation Friday morning. It's not fair to her. She had a lot of plans in life. Beautiful girl. Beautiful, said grandmother Tracy Smith. The district attorney said that at about 6:10 p.m. Friday, Lowell police received a 911 call from Elena's grandmother, who said family members found the girl's body inside the Lowell Street home. Miss Dickey's family knew the girl was seriously hurt and feared she was dead. Ryan said that when police arrived at the scene, they found Miss Dickey suffering from gunshot wounds in a first-floor bedroom. 8 shots were fired, according to the court documents. Beatty had threatened to kill the girl and her grandmother days before the fatal shooting, prosecutors said. Beatty made such statements as, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your grandma." He was going to shoot up her house. He threatened to kidnap her and shoot her, prosecutor Christopher Tarrant said. Miss Dickey had turned 15 years old on April 18th, the district attorney said. "She's my oldest granddaughter, and I don't know how we're going to go on without her," Smith said. "She was a child." Investigators said Miss Dickey was in an abusive relationship with Beatty, who was her boyfriend for some period of time, according to Ryan. The district attorney also said Beatty was accused of hitting Miss Dickey and threatening her in the past. Ryan said that shortly after midnight on Friday, police received a phone call reporting to hear a male and female fighting outside on Lawrence Street. The caller said they heard a female scream, "Get off me, get away from me, I don't want to be with you anymore," before hearing gunshots, according to the district attorney. Beatty took an Uber to and from Miss Dickey's home before and after the shooting, Ryan's office said. The Uber driver told police that he was concerned by the behavior of the passenger, who was later identified as Beatty. The driver reported that Beatty used his sweatshirt to open the car door and instructed the driver to wipe down the car after he exited the vehicle.
What the fuck? Our parents and grandparents should be imprisoned for child neglect, child abuse, whatever.
Why was your nearly 14-year-old daughter not living with you? Or you, as in mom, dad, grandma?
14 and 21, that's 7 years difference. It's a crazy world we live in, I guess.
I'm like 21 and 28 doesn't sound super bad, right? So it's not so bad once you're both adults. But until you're both adults.
And if you're adults, don't kill each other either.
Unless he deserves it. Unless she asks for it.
You want me to read all this shit about fucking that Yahoo? I fucking hate this dude.
We're gonna have, look, there's a back and forth.
It's about mayonnaise.
This is from Al Jazeera. Israel's Netanyahu dissolved the war cabinet. Does it matter?
Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has dissolved the country's war cabinet. Following the withdrawal of his principal rival, Benny Gantz, the 6-member war cabinet will now be replaced by a kitchen cabinet, which Netanyahu will be able to consult for advice on the war on Gaza. Netanyahu had been under pressure from far-right ministers within his coalition cabinet who wanted to join the war cabinet, which could have triggered a further lurch to the extreme right of Israeli politics. The war cabinet was formed on October 11th, after Israel declared war on Gaza in response to Hamas-led attacks on October 7th. The cabinet was set up as a smaller body within the security cabinet, which was part of the wider coalition cabinet. The war cabinet was intended to make quick decisions about the conduct of war, which would then be sent for approval by a wider cabinet. On June 9th, Gantz and observer Eisenkot, both National Unity Party, quit the war cabinet over the lack of a plan for Gaza beyond the current assault. Speaking on Sunday evening, Netanyahu reportedly told the security cabinet there is no more war cabinet. One member present told the Israeli press it was part of the coalition agreement with Gantz at his demand. The moment Gantz left, there is no such form anymore. Ben Gvir and Smotrich represent an ultra-Orthodox, hard-right constituency within Israel's increasingly rightwards tilting politics. They are also closely associated with the settler movement, which seeks to build on what is Palestinian land under international law. Both previously threatened to resign if Israel did not launch its current attack upon the city of Rafah in Gaza. At the time, home to 1.5 million displaced people, but also threatened to quit if Netanyahu proceeded with the United States-backed ceasefire deal before they deemed Hamas destroyed. Ben Gvir and Smotrich also support the establishment of illegal settlements in Gaza, following the voluntary migration of the Palestinians living there, a position in stark contrast to Israel's official war policy. Given that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich parties hold a combined 14 seats within the Knesset, compared to, say, Gantz National Unity's 12, their withdrawal to the coalition cabinet's collapse and the end of Netanyahu's term in office. According to Netanyahu, the war cabinet will be replaced by a reduced kitchen cabinet in which sensitive discussions and consultations can be conducted.
And this is from The Guardian. Netanyahu reportedly criticized military tactical pause in Gaza amid divisions with the IDF. Israel's prime minister is said to have called the decision unacceptable after Ben-Gvir said whoever decided it was a fool.
Netanyahu has reportedly criticized plans announced by the military to hold daily tactical pauses in fighting along one of the main roads into Gaza, the delivery of aid. On Sunday, the military announced a daily pause that would begin in the Rafah area and remain in effect until 7 p.m. to allow aid trucks to transit between the Kerem Shalom crossing from Israel, adding that the pause would take place every day until further notice. When the Prime Minister heard the reports of an 11-hour humanitarian pause in the morning, he turned to his military secretary and made it clear that this was unacceptable to him. An unnamed Israeli official told media late on Sunday. The official said Netanyahu received assurance that there is no change in the military's policy and fighting in Rafah continues as planned. The military clarified that normal operations would continue in Rafah, the main focus of its operation in southern Gaza, where 8 soldiers were killed on Saturday. However, the reaction from Netanyahu underlined political tension over the issue of aid coming into Gaza, where international organizations have warned of a growing humanitarian crisis. The spat is the latest in a series of clashes between members of the coalition and the military over the conduct of the war, now in its 9th month, and comes a week after centrist former General Benny Gantz quit the government, accusing Netanyahu of having no effective strategy in Gaza. The limited pause was announced after talks with Egypt and pressure from the U.S. to increase the flow of humanitarian aid in Gaza. The IDF said the pause was being coordinated with the UN and international aid agencies. The U.S. has been pressing Israel and Hamas to formally accept the ceasefire deal, backed by Security Council members last week, which would allow an initial 6-week pause in fighting. But despite the growing international pressure for a truce, an agreement still appears distant. Opinion polls suggest most Israelis support the government's aim of destroying Hamas. There has been widespread protests attacking the government for not doing more to bring home about 120 hostages who are still in Gaza after being taken hostage on October 7th.
Netanyahu and his party proved once again they are not a partner for peace, rejecting multiple deals described as their own that Hamas has at least accepted one deal, possibly more. We need a permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. It seems as if the Israeli government is on purpose collectively punishing Palestinians with drones, starvation, and terror.
Isn't collective punishment a war crime?
Earning stuff. Starvation's a war crime too.
Have you seen the price of mayonnaise? It's fucking bonkers.
It's highway robbery.
There's no almonds in this fridge!
Most people, I would say, have not been doing okay for a long time. I don't know how people are making it anymore. I mean, you look at high gas prices, high grocery prices, rents increasing more and more. Our money is becoming less valuable, and yet somehow, simultaneously, the Fed raises rates, so borrowing is more expensive. Maybe we make more money than we did pre-pandemic, but it doesn't really matter when inflation and high taxes on the working class eats any gains there may have been.
The Democrats are running on a strong economy, but literally no one is buying it. Yes, unemployment is down, but how many of those are underemployed or people with multiple jobs? It takes a lot of money to live comfortably on a single income nationwide. Looming large, the fact that homelessness went up 12% in 2023 alone. The stock market is doing good. You might hear a liberal pundit say on Morning Joe, but that is good for who? 90% of stocks are owned by the 10% wealthiest households, and that statistic only gets more concentrated as time goes on. Since Biden took office in January 2021, inflation has increased nearly 20%, while wages have only risen 16%. If the Democrats want to win in November, they need to go with different messaging or actually do something to address the hardship of everyday people at home. Back during the pandemic, the default mainstream view was that big government spending is to blame for inflation. Many made the argument that it was specifically because of the COVID relief checks that helped working people. Authoritative sources alleged spending directly led to high inflation and a collapsing economy at the time. With that logic in mind, I find myself questioning something they failed to consider. It never seemed to cross anyone's mind to blame the $5 trillion bailout to corporate America that happened, I'm pretty sure, before any American citizen seen a penny. Sounds like big government spending, right? But no, let's criticize the crumbs given to the people. In hindsight, there were several factors that led to increased inflation that had nothing to do with helping everyday people during a time of need. The supply chain suffered setbacks early in 2020 after the state governors enacted lockdowns and the CDC issued guidelines for COVID. Corporations took the hysteria and confusion at the time to raise prices, pad their bottom lines, and increase profit to record heights. It was penned at the time as greedflation. Some estimates go as high as 60% of inflation is corporate greed and price gouging.
This is from Axios. Chief economist at UBS Global Wealth Management, Paul Donovan, published a note on profit margin-led inflation, describing in late 2022, retailers and consumer good makers convinced people they needed to raise prices. They actually didn't. In a speech in 2023, the Fed vice chair said wages were not the main driver of inflation and pointed to a price spiral, where companies mark up prices far higher than their initial costs.
You look at something like Project 2025, and it is terrifying, but watching the Democrats do nothing to help themselves or the people when they have power is truly soul-crushing.